blends, actually 3 spice combos I'm calling them, that I use all the time when I'm cooking dinner. It's a really fast way to add a lot of flavor, and I just do it with a few different spices that I have in my cupboard. The combos that I'm showing you today are usually just 2 different spices, and then sometimes some garlic or lemon zest or something added too. And they make really easy, basically spice pastes to rub on anything that you like. So first we're going to start with one of my favorite ones, and that's the turmeric and black pepper one. And kind of essential to that too is garlic. So turmeric, black pepper, and garlic. I almost always add the garlic as a fresh element, although you could use powdered garlic as well. I like the fresh garlic in that one. So what I do, it's really easy to remember. And these I really like because I can remember them. I don't have to look them up. So I can just look in my spice cupboard and just pull them out and do it, not have to worry about a recipe. So the first one, turmeric and black pepper, and it's just equal parts turmeric and black pepper. So for today, I'm just gonna take a teaspoon. Where's my teaspoon? I have my turmeric here. A teaspoon of the turmeric. And I'm just going to put it there in a little bowl. A teaspoon of ground black pepper. I just ground this up in the spice grinder, nice and fresh. And then I'm going to take a garlic clove, maybe 2 here, and add that as well. You could totally use some garlic powder as well, maybe a half a teaspoon or so. Garlic powder is really concentrated, so you don't need as much as cloves. So for 2 garlic cloves, I'd maybe use a half a teaspoon of the garlic powder or granulated garlic, because it's really powerful. You don't want to overwhelm it. So there's that. And then what I'm going to do to this little mixture is just add some oil. And you can see I'm just doing it in a little bowl. I'm not doing it directly onto the food I'm making yet. I'm just making a little spice paste. I'm just going to add enough olive oil to make, with just that, a paste. I don't want too much or too little. See that? Can we see it? This is still a little bit dry, not quite a paste yet, so I'm going to add just a touch more. And I haven't added salt yet because I don't know what I'm putting this on yet. Usually I use this mixture for chicken, although it's really good on shrimp as well. And it's really good on mushrooms. It's really, really good on mushrooms, actually. So I won't add the salt until I know what I'm doing with it. For salt, I generally use about 3/4 of a teaspoon of fine sea salt per pound of meat. So say I was cooking 1.5 pounds of, boy, I had to make that complicated, didn't I? 1 pound of chicken, I would use 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt in this and go accordingly from there. And I'm talking about fine sea salt. I use fine sea salt, which is super concentrated. If you're using kosher salt, you would just use a little bit more salt, more like 1 teaspoon per pound. If you're not using meat, I actually go by kind of the same thing for vegetables. So about 3/4 of a teaspoon of fine sea salt per pound of vegetables. So say you had a pound of mushrooms, that's kind of a lot of mushrooms, but say you had a pound of mushrooms, I would use about 3/4 of a teaspoon per pound of mushrooms, right? And I would just throw it straight in there. You can see it's a nice, beautiful colored paste. And the turmeric and the black pepper flavors just go really well together along with the garlic. And one thing I love adding to this too is either the zest of a lemon or a lime. That's kind of key in here. Either one is absolutely delicious. This is kind of my go-to chicken marinade. It makes really good leftovers, if there are any, for salad or wraps or anything. Really good grilled. So that's my first one. Turmeric, black pepper in equal parts, and garlic as well, however you like. The second one that I really like is cumin and coriander. Those are some of the first spices I ever started using when I was younger and I was cooking. There was this taco recipe that my mom had, and there was cumin and coriander in it, and I always loved adding the little bits of cumin and coriander. I still remember how many teaspoons I had to add because I loved doing it so much. I committed it to memory. I was probably 10. So both of these, so cumin, this is already ground up here. I just use these jars. This is the blends, the spices that I get and grind by myself. And then the coriander as well here, and I've ground them both on my own. So I took the cumin seeds. I didn't toast them or anything, but I ground them in my spice grinder, which I put away. It's actually just an old coffee grinder that is clean. It hasn't had coffee in it for years, but I use it. It's a dedicated grinder that I use for spices. And I like grinding my spices fresh because they're so much more pungent that way. You don't have to use as much at all. So freshly ground cumin is actually quite strong. So I will go kind of a little bit on this, and I'm going to use a different little bowl here. And I always start with about 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. And this is for meals that are maybe like for 4 people. Once you start cooking for more than that, you can up the spice amounts more. But with the fresh spices, I always start kind of small so as not to overpower. So the cumin, generally, I will do about 1/4 teaspoon of cumin to 1/2 teaspoon of coriander. And the coriander has kind of a sweet, citrusy, floral taste to it. And the cumin is very earthy. That's why I'm careful with it, because it can really overpower a dish where all you taste is cumin. And while it's delicious, I prefer not to only taste one thing. So I just put a little bit of cumin, 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, and 1/2 teaspoon of coriander in there. And same thing, I would add a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to do that right now. Tiny bit of olive oil because it wasn't nearly as much stuff. And then salt, depending on what I'm making, about 3/4 teaspoon per pound of whatever that I'm making. And I'm going to go ahead and just stir that up. And this is really good. I'm actually going to do this on carrots. I have some carrots here. So I have a couple of carrots, and this would be delicious. I'm just going to cut these into chunks. I'll just do this right now. Let me get my cutting board and my knife. I've scrubbed those carrots. So I scrubbed these carrots here, and I'm just going to cut them into chunks. Here I'm going to take off those tips, but I'm going to cut them into chunks. Not too big, not too small, maybe like that. They're just going to roast for about 20 minutes in the oven with this spice paste on them, the cumin coriander spice paste. And I'll put a little bit of salt in there too. Maybe about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Keep in mind you can always add salt afterwards too for the vegetables. So if you don't put quite enough salt in, you can always salt them after. So there's a little bit of the spice paste there. Just doing some nice chunks. Cumin goes really well with carrots. You can also, if you didn't want to roast the carrots, you can actually shred them too and use this cumin coriander mixture in a dressing. That would be really good too. So add a little bit of vinegar or lemon juice to this with the cumin and coriander in there, and salt. Some zest too. I'm all about the zest. And you can always add zest and the juice as well. They have kind of different flavors to them, different tasting notes, so it totally works out to do both. So there's my carrots, nothing on them yet. Here's my cumin coriander mixture. Not a ton here, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw that on there. Mix it up in the bowl, and then afterward I will put it on a baking sheet and roast for about 20 minutes. One thing you can also do with these carrots, that was actually just the perfect amount. I like them lightly coated, not too much. Carrots are also really good grilled. It is summer, so it's kind of grilling season. And if I were to grill carrots, I would have cut these lengthwise, maybe in half, or maybe not even cut them at all, because they weren't that fat of carrots. So they would grill up in probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and rub them in the cumin coriander spice blend with the salt and olive oil and grill them. So good. If you haven't had a grilled carrot, do that soon. They're really delicious. So that I'll put on a baking sheet and cook off. Actually, I'll turn the oven on right now. If you have any specific questions, let me know and I will try to answer them. Or if I say something funny and you don't understand it, let me know. So I have the third one here. So first I have the turmeric, black pepper, garlic, the cumin coriander one. Oh, the cumin coriander one is also really good with ground beef or mushrooms as well. I use it a lot in that way. Oh, and other vegetables it's good with chickpeas, beets, eggplant, really good with eggplant, If you add a little bit of allspice in there with those two, really good. Mushrooms. I mean, you can put spice blends on almost anything and they taste good, but these are my suggestions. I have a third one. Where are we here? Here's the stuff. So my third one is smoked paprika and garlic powder I have here. It's actually granulated garlic. They're a little bit different. The powder is more of a powder. It's the dried garlic pulverized, and the granulated garlic is not as fine, and it's not as dusty, honestly. This one is stronger to me, the granulated garlic. I use them not quite interchangeably, but sometimes. So for the smoked paprika and garlic one, it is also an even mixture. It's 1-to-1. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of the smoked paprika. And if you haven't used smoked paprika before, you really should. Smoked paprika is from Spain. And what they do is they roast a certain variety of pepper over an oak wood fire. And the paprika takes on this wonderful, and then grind the peppers after they're dried. And the paprika takes on a really awesome smoky, oaky smell that is just delicious on food. It's a great way to add smokiness if you're a vegetarian and you like that smoky flavor. It's a great way to add. I do it in chilies, like a black bean chili I make. I use the smoked paprika, which you can do without meat too. It makes it absolutely delicious. Back to this, sorry. So I got 1 tablespoon of the smoked paprika. I can go on and on forever. And then I'm going to do half that amount of garlic, granulated garlic. So I'm just going to do 1.5 teaspoons of granulated garlic. You could do fresh garlic as well. This is just one of those blends that I like to have. I'll make up and have sitting there next to my stove. And this was actually the base for one of my Spice Club blends that I sent out last year. And once I made up that blend, I actually just started, I don't have any more of that blend left. And I just started kind of using this all the time. So that garlic and the smoked paprika go really well together. If you want to kick it up a notch, this is another really great ingredient. We already used the turmeric, but turmeric goes really great with smoked paprika. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a tablespoon of turmeric in there. I had a tablespoon of turmeric, a tablespoon of smoked paprika, and 1.5 teaspoons of granulated garlic. I'm going to go ahead and mix that up. This is a beautiful color there. Now, you know what? Honestly, I'm going to add one more thing. I said it was 2 things, but I lied. I'm inspired. I'm going to put some oregano in there because oregano is delicious. Maybe 1.5 teaspoons or so. So there you go. When I make up my spice blends, I always wait until I'm cooking whatever I'm cooking to add the salt. I don't like spice blends with the salt already added because it's really hard to know how much salt you're adding to your dish. And I really like to be in control of how much salt I'm adding so that it tastes good. So it's not undersalted or oversalted. When your salt's in your blend already, it's hard to know exactly what it's going to taste like. So I keep it salt-free until I go ahead and cook. This one I'm actually going to do later on some potatoes. I have some yummy red potatoes here that I'm going to roast up separately from the carrots. And again, smoky potatoes, what's better? That's delicious, right? You can also grill them as well. This would be really good in a stew as well, a vegetable stew. You get that smoky earthiness from the paprika too. So that's really all I had to show you for today. I actually, on the Spice Club website, I have a little starter kit for spices. So if any of these spices you're unfamiliar with, you can go on there and choose a few different spices, and I'll send you these samples so you can start playing around. I'm pretty sure all these ones I showed you today are on there. Smoked paprika, turmeric, cumin, coriander. Also in there is allspice and sumac, which I'm going to talk about a different day. I love sumac. So I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will pop back on here probably in a week or two and share some more of my spice blends with you. My spice combos, I should say that. I do sell spice blends at the website, it's Spice Club. But these are just really kind of simple combinations that I wanted to show you that you can do at home. So I'm just going to cut these up into, let's see, while we're all still here, I'm going to do these wedges here. You see them? So kind of lengthwise into 4s. And when I pick out potatoes at the farmer's market, I always try to get ones that are the same size. That way they all are easy to cut evenly and they cook evenly too. That's one of the things. Nowadays when you go to the farmer's market and people are picking out your produce for you, they say, what do you want? And I say, can you just make sure they're all a similar size? Because that's what I would pick out. So you can see the potatoes are just all these wedges. I love wedge potatoes, they're so good. I'm going to go ahead and throw them in my bowl. And I will put, I got some potatoes in there. I'm going to put a little bit of the smoked paprika, garlic, turmeric situation on there. Just a little bit. And I'm going to add the salt separately. I'm not going to use all this. I made a lot here. Just a little bit. And then salt. That was probably about half a pound of potatoes or so. Where'd my salt go? Oh, up here. So, I don't know. That much salt. Look good? And then some olive oil just to wet it. You don't want the olive oil sitting in the bottom of the bowl. You don't want to waste it. But just enough to coat. And then I'll get myself a spoon. Go ahead and toss it around. So there you go. I have these smoked paprika, turmeric potatoes. I will put them in the oven. I think that's it. If you're just hopping on now, make sure you watch the video. It'll be posted very soon after I am done here. And let me know, message me if there's anything particular you want me to do a video about. I love doing these little live videos, but I want to do what you want to learn, so let me know. All right, I'll see you guys next time.